When you mention Yvonne De Carlo, most people immediately picture the image of the vampire mother Lily Munster, the gentle, charming, and loving character in the classic 1960s series. However, behind that pale white makeup and graceful smile lies a chaotic life full of passionate romances, family tragedies, and emotional wounds that Hollywood deliberately hid for many decades. Today on Ryan's Hollywood Uncovered, I'm going to tell you the real story of this woman, not the beautified version on screen, but a journey full of tears, passion, and a level of resilience that is truly astonishing. If you want me to explore any more movies, TV shows, or Hollywood secrets, just comment right below. And I'm Ryan. Please like and subscribe to the channel to start exploring the main content of this video with me. Early struggles and Hollywood breakthrough. The story begins at a hospital in Vancouver, Canada in 1922. In the midst of labor pains, her mother, Mrs. Mary Middleton, screamed out a sentence that would later become a prophecy for her daughter's entire life. "I want a baby girl. I must have a baby girl. I want a dancer." At that time, no one knew that those words would push a little girl named Margaret Yvonne Middleton into a world where glamour and darkness always went hand in hand. Her father, William, abandoned the family when Yvonne was only 3 years old, after getting involved in shady deals with bad people. There were rumors that he drowned at sea while fleeing, but no matter what the truth was, her father's disappearance left an unfillable void in the little girl's soul. Her mother did not allow that pain to bring her down. Instead, Marie turned her dream into a mission. She continuously took her daughter to dance and singing lessons, then drove from Vancouver down to Los Angeles for Yvonne to participate in beauty contests and public events. The long trips, the exhausting auditions, and even the contemptuous looks from people in the industry. All of these were the little girl's early life lessons. Yvonne was trained at June Roper's British Columbia School of Dancing, where her singing and dancing talents quickly emerged. She had an emotionally rich voice and a fierce vitality. But 1940s Hollywood was not an easy place to open its doors to a young girl from Vancouver. At the age of 17, she changed her name to Yvonne De Carlo and began performing at local nightclubs. Her first trip to Hollywood failed, but she didn't give up. At 18, she returned and won the Miss Venice Beach contest. That small victory changed everything. She caught the attention of Paramount Pictures and signed a contract in August 1942. However, the first few years were just a long string of days with unnamed supporting roles in films like This Gun for Hire and Road to Morocco, where she played a maid to Dorothy Lamour. Hollywood at that time treated her like a decorative item, beautiful but not worth serious investment. Many people in the industry criticized the way they treated Yvonne because her real talent was wasted in exaggerated and comedic roles. But Yvonne was not someone who would easily collapse. She had big ambitions and an extremely skillful ability to promote herself. When her contract with Paramount ended, a big opportunity came from Universal Pictures. In 1945, she was chosen for the lead role in the film Salome by Charles Lamont. This sexy dancer role not only brought her name to the forefront, but also caused a stir with the Hays Code censorship office. Producer Walter Wanger had searched nationwide for more than 20,000 girls before choosing Yvonne, and he publicly called her the most beautiful girl in the world. In the film, Yvonne emerged from beaded curtains, wearing a Japanese kimono and performing a seductive Siamese dance. A New York Times critic wrote that she possessed all the beauty a woman could desire, and the way she danced so sensually made many people worry for the censorship office. That was the moment Yvonne De Carlo truly stepped into the ranks of Hollywood's most glamorous stars. She became the favorite pinup model for soldiers in uniform during the war, and she loved singing for them. Rising fame meant the media was always following her every step. Gossip columns never stopped reporting on Yvonne's dates with the biggest names of the time. And this was exactly when her personal life began to become more complicated and darker than any film script. Rise to sex symbol and turbulent romances. Yvonne was not a shy woman when it came to romance. She lived her passions to the fullest and wasn't afraid to openly admit that she liked attention. Any attention was better than being forgotten. In her 1974 autobiography, she frankly recounted a series of relationships with famous men. One of the first and most notable names was billionaire Howard Hughes. The two dated for a while. Yvonne later described Hughes as an experienced lover, but she couldn't hide her discomfort with a rather strange detail. His toenails were curved, almost touching his toes. Hughes taught her how to take off and land a plane, but according to her, he never taught her how to fly the plane in the middle, as if he thought knowing just the two ends was enough. It was a colorful relationship, but it soon fell apart when Yvonne brought up marriage. Not only Hughes, Yvonne also had a serious relationship with actor Robert Stack, who would always admire her throughout his life. She also attracted the attention of Burt Lancaster, Robert Taylor, and even director Billy Wilder. In her memoir, Yvonne listed many names, and she added that among that list were even a few truck drivers. She wasn't afraid to admit that she had had one-night stands, but there were also relationships she hoped would lead to true love and marriage. People like James Stewart, Ray Milland, Scott Brady, or Prince Ali Khan had all shown love for her, but none stayed until the end. Each breakup left a wound in Yvonne's heart. One time, after a miscarriage with athlete Jock Mahoney, who later became Sally Field's stepfather, the breakup didn't go smoothly. Yvonne told the press that Jock only became famous because he was seen going out with her. Believe me, when I read the pages of Yvonne's memoir, I was truly shocked by her frankness. She didn't try to paint the picture of a perfect star. Instead, she told about her burning love affairs, almost without hiding anything. One of the most striking details is the story with Burt Lancaster. In the book, Yvonne recounted that they had sex on a luxurious mink coat. That wasn't just a story about fleeting passion, but it also showed that Yvonne was a woman who lived true to herself. Not shy, not hiding anything, even when Hollywood at that time was still very harsh on women who dared to openly express their emotional and physical needs. But behind those glamorous love affairs was a loneliness and fragility that few people saw. Yvonne had many times hoped to find a solid haven, a man who could stay by her side until the end of her life. Yet Hollywood in the 1940s to 1950s was a place where love was often overshadowed by ambition and public image. Every time a relationship fell apart, Yvonne had to face rumors and judgmental looks. She skillfully turned those rumors into an advantage, keeping her name always hot in the press. But the price to pay was emotional wounds that grew deeper and deeper. Major success, marriage, and devastating tragedy. Yvonne's career was still on the rise. After the role in Salome, she continued to star in many films, often playing exotic beauties and westerns or films with light erotic elements, like Casbah in 1947, where she played a slave. These roles weren't really worthy of her talent, but Yvonne persisted. She believed that one day she would be given more serious roles. And then, in 1956, the big opportunity arrived. She was chosen to play Sephora Moses' wife in the classic film The Ten Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille, starring alongside Charlton Heston. This was the most serious and important role in her career up to that point. The film later became one of the highest-grossing works of all time, and Yvonne's performance was widely praised. On the set, she met Bobby Morgan, a stunt actor she had known from the film Shotgun a year earlier. Their relationship developed quickly. Morgan had a daughter from a previous marriage, and Yvonne raised the little girl as if she were her own. Together, they had 2 sons, Bruce and Michael. The godfather of Bruce was the legendary director Cecil B. DeMille. For the first time in many years, Yvonne seemed to have found a bit of peace and stability in her personal life. But even when happiness seemed to have found Yvonne after the resounding success of her role as Sephora in The 10 Commandments and her marriage to Bobby Morgan, a stuntman she had known from before, fate was preparing one of the hardest blows to her life. In 1962, during the filming of the epic film How the West Was Won by MGM, Bobby Morgan had a horrific accident on set. A train ran over him during an action scene. The accident took his left leg and left him with permanent disabilities, completely changing the trajectory of not only his own life, but also that of Yvonne's entire family. That was a tragedy that happened right when everything seemed stable. Yvonne didn't blame anyone or sit back and endure it. To cover the enormous medical costs after the accident, she returned to performing in nightclubs, the very place where she had started her career many years earlier. Those late-night shows, while having to worry about her disabled husband and 2 small children, were the clearest proof of this woman's extraordinary endurance. She sang, she danced, she smiled at the audience, but behind the curtains were long nights filled with exhaustion and anxiety about the future. But the tragedy didn't stop there. Yvonne and Bobby together decided to sue MGM for $1.4 million in compensation, believing that the film company had not ensured sufficient safety measures on set. The lawsuit quickly turned into an uneven battle. MGM firmly denied all responsibility, claiming that all preventive procedures had been followed and that the accident was unavoidable. According to what Yvonne later recounted, the company's employees were threatened with losing their jobs if they didn't side with the company. No one dared to testify for Bobby. There was no witness supporting their side. The lawsuit ended in a bitter defeat. This failure not only shattered hopes for justice, but also added more burden to their marriage itself. In 1968, Yvonne and Bobby officially separated. After many years of living apart, they divorced in 1973. That was a painful ending to a relationship that Yvonne had placed so much hope in. A safe harbor that she thought would bring stability after so many years of wandering in love and career. The marriage fell apart amid financial hardship and great emotional trauma, leaving wounds in her heart that were hard to heal. I can't help but feel outraged when I think about how a giant like MGM handled the case. They chose to protect their image and profits instead of standing by the victim. That is precisely the dark side of Hollywood that few people want to mention. A system ready to sacrifice individuals to maintain a perfect appearance. The Munsters' revival and stage comeback. In those dark years, when her career was stalling and her personal life was falling apart, an unexpected opportunity appeared in 1964. The horror comedy series The Munsters needed a replacement for the role of Lily Munster after actress Beverly Owen left after the first 13 episodes. Yvonne was chosen for the part. At first, she was a bit hesitant. The image of an eccentric vampire mother in a monster family seemed too far removed from the glamorous, sexy roles she had played in Hollywood during the 1940s and 1950s. But when Yvonne stepped onto the set and started getting into character, everything changed in a way that neither she nor the audience expected. Even her co-star Fred Gwynne, who played Herman Munster and initially had some concerns about the cast change, was quickly won over by Yvonne's presence. She brought a rare emotional depth to the character of Lily. Humor, warm maternal love, and a ghostly, seductive charm that was incredibly captivating. The role required an elaborate makeup process, taking about 3 hours for each scene, including a wig weighing more than 9 kilograms. Yvonne had to transform into a gothic version of the perfect Donna Reed-style mother from the 1950s, but covered in a layer of dark night makeup and quirky features. She portrayed the character vividly, using subtle hand gestures to create her own signature. Lily Munster became a strong mother who loved her family, was intelligent, and full of personality, even though she had lived for over 100 years. The American public, from children to adults, was instantly captivated by the new Lily Munster. The series only lasted 2 seasons, but its impact on Yvonne's career was deep and long-lasting. For the first time in many years, she found stability, both financially and emotionally. The role brought her a whole new young audience, people who would never know the Yvonne De Carlo from the Salome or the Ten Commandments era. She later shared that the role of Lily had brought her back into the spotlight after a long time away from the screen. It was one of the most beautiful and unexpected moments in her later career, when Hollywood had almost turned its back on her. A humorous TV role brought her back to the spotlight in a meaningful way. After the series ended, Yvonne didn't sit still. She continued to take on guest roles in TV shows like The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. and The Virginian, and returned to the familiar Western genre in late 1960s films like Hostile Guns and Arizona Bushwhackers. However, she gradually realized that her future might lie more on stage than on the big screen. She joined a 5-month tour of the musical Hello, Dolly, and 15 weeks performing in Little Me. Those stage performances gave her a sense of closeness to the audience that she had once had in her early career days. I believe that when Yvonne stepped onto the Broadway stage in 1971 and sang the song I'm Still Here, she wasn't just acting. She was telling her own story to the whole world. A story about resilience, about not letting any tragedy define her entire life. And the audience listened. They loved Lily Munster. They applauded Carlotta Campion, and they remembered Yvonne De Carlo as a woman who lived fully, loved fully, and fought fully. Legacy, later years, and enduring spirit. Yvonne De Carlo's story still has final chapters that few people mention. The years when the spotlight had faded and her body began to demand payment after so many years of living life to the fullest. After her final role in 1995 in the Disney TV movie, Yvonne officially stepped behind the scenes. She had worked non-stop for over 5 decades, from the sexy dancer roles in the 1940s to the beloved vampire mother role in the 1960s, then to the resounding stage roles in the 1970s. By the time she was in her 70s, she deserved to rest. However, in 1998, she suffered a mild stroke. That was the first sign that her health was declining after a life full of upheavals and stress. Nearly 10 years after the stroke, on January 8, 2007, Yvonne De Carlo passed away from heart failure at her home in California. She was 84 years old. When the sad news was announced, all of Hollywood and millions of fans around the world expressed their sorrow. But what makes me think the most is the way the world remembers her. Even though Yvonne's career spanned film, Broadway musicals, and television, even though she was once one of the most glamorous beauties of the 1940s and 1950s, even though she had serious roles like Sephora in the Ten Commandments, the image the public most associates with her name is still Lily Munster, the gentle, intelligent, and loving vampire mother in the series The Munsters. The role she took on in 1964 when her career was at a low point and her personal life was falling apart, ended up becoming her greatest legacy. Oh my God, when I think about everything Yvonne went through, I can't help but feel a deep admiration mixed with sadness. She was the embodiment of resilience, a woman who was once treated by Hollywood like a decorative object, who was let down by love many times, who lost her husband to an accident and an unfair lawsuit, but still never stopped finding ways to keep going. She didn't let the past define her entire life. Instead, she kept reinventing herself, from a 1940s film star to a 1960s TV icon, then to a beloved stage artist in the 1970s. That is the biggest lesson I think we can learn from her journey. First, Yvonne's story reminds us that it's never too late to start over. When she took on the role of Lily Munster, she was already over 40, an age when many actresses of her time were considered washed up. Yet that very role brought her back to the top and gave her the most lasting legacy. It proved that talent and perseverance can overcome even the harshest prejudices in the entertainment industry. Second, Yvonne taught us about the power of sincerity. In her memoir, she didn't paint a picture of a perfect star. She frankly told about her love affairs, her failures, and even the emotional longings that many women of her time had to keep hidden. That frankness didn't diminish her image. On the contrary, it made her more relatable and more cherished in the public's eyes. In a world where public image is often tightly controlled, Yvonne chose to live true to herself, and that helped her find freedom. Third, her story exposes the dark side of Hollywood, where the power of film studios can overshadow justice. The lawsuit against MGM after Bobby Morgan's accident is a prime example. When a big company is willing to threaten its own employees to protect its image, the individual, whether a star or a stuntman, can easily become a victim. Yvonne witnessed that and still kept fighting. She didn't stay silent. She used her own story to remind us that behind the glittering spotlight, there are always shadows that we need to dare to look straight at. Finally, Yvonne's journey is a reminder of the value of resilience and the ability to adapt. From a little girl abandoned by her father, raised under the pressure of an ambitious mother, to a star who went through so many ups and downs in love and career, she never stopped moving forward. Even when her marriage fell apart, even when her health declined, she still found joy in her work and in bringing laughter to others through the role of Lily Munster. That is a spirit I think each of us can learn from in our own lives. My dear friend, if you've followed along to here, I hope Yvonne De Carlo's story has touched your heart the way it touched mine. She is a part of classic Hollywood, where the stories behind the screen are often more tragic and complicated than what we see on screen. She lived, she loved, she suffered, and she triumphed in her own way. The greatest legacy she left behind is not just the films or classic series, but the spirit of never giving up in the face of adversity. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to Yvonne De Carlo's story with me today. Please like this video if you think the story is worth sharing. Subscribe to the Ryan's Hollywood Uncovered channel so you don't miss new videos every week. And turn on the notification bell to stay updated. I'm Ryan, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next journeys exploring the mysterious and emotional side of classic Hollywood. Wishing you all a day filled with so much joy and always keeping the flame of passion in your heart, no matter how many challenges life brings. See you again.